What is up, Panther Nation? Welcome back to yet another video on the Rockstar Report. Again, I appreciate everyone who comes through here and shows your love and support. Before we get into today's video, make sure you do these three things. Now, you see the title, Are We Sleeping on the Panthers defense heading into 2025? And have we actually turned, from a liability to actually having an identity? Now, here's the thing. If there's one lesson that we can learn from the NFL, and that is that it keeps teaching, right? Especially after that dominant Philadelphia Super Bowl win, this past year. And there's one thing that we can learn from that Super Bowl team, and that is the trenches matter, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, championship teams don't execute, they impose. They control the games up front, physically, relentlessly, and the Panthers weren't even close to that standard, last year. And Dan Morgan took over. The team was flat out soft in the trenches. There was no identity. There's no anchor. And nowhere near the level that we needed to be to compete in today's NFL. But I got to give credit where credit is due. And Morgan understood the assignment this offseason, and he didn't flinch, right? So I'll say this. Let's start with phase one, okay? Phase one of this whole rebuild, first off, is that we had to rebuild this offensive line, right? And Morgan opened up the checkbook. He poured out over $150 million in contracts into this interior offensive line. They signed Damian Lewis. They went out and got Robert Hunt. To me, this was a direct response to the chaos of 2023. So when Bryce Young was sacked over 60 times and the guard rotation looked like a weekly audition, the results, though, was transformative, right? In 2024, we were top 5 in yards before contact. Chuba Hubbard nearly racked up over 1,200 rushing yards. Bryce Young had more time, more rhythm, ended up having more confidence after, week 8 on up to the end of the season. But this offensive line went from a weakness to a strength and not a liability, right? They were able to set the tone for the rest of this roster, right? But then they went to phase two, right? This defensive line needed a complete overhaul. I mean, you see the rankings right here. I mean, unfortunately, this defensive front was just a total different story last year. Now, losing Derrick Brown in week 1 definitely didn't help. You losing Shaq Thompson to another season-ending injury, who's a vocal leader on that defense. A lot of this was devastating, but the biggest blow obviously was Derrick Brown. And, without him, the Panthers really had no anchor. They had no depth. They had no resistance. But this team lined up and teams were just lining up and running down our throats. 6 games with over 200 plus rushing yards allowed. We had 10 games plus with over 150 plus yards allowed. Like a run defense that finished nearly the bottom in EPA per play. And like Shy Tuttle was overmatched. Linebackers Josie Jewell and you had rookie Tre'Von Wallace were consistently getting swallowed up. Opposing game plans were simple. It was just run the damn ball. Don't stop until they do something about it, basically, right? And Dan Morgan admitted that of the failure. And then he went to work, again this offseason. And completely free agency moves. I mean, attack the free agency. He had a clear blueprint, right? Build and knock back and depth, right? Build, knock back, and depth. That's what it was. He got Bobby Brown the third there, a true nose tackle with long arms, low leverage, has serious power. He's built to eat double teams, still can control the gaps, right? But this was the kind of the space eater that we needed. The Panthers simply didn't have that last year, right? Then you went on and got Tershawn Wharton, undersized, but very quick, right? A disruptive interior rusher who's shown he can beat even the top tier guards with leverage and hustle. Carolina hasn't had this kind of interior juice since Kawan Short's, prime, really. And then you got Pat Jones the second coming in, a versatile edge defender who plays with urgency. He sets the edge, plays inside out, brings a physical mentality that fits Evero's demands, right? But we didn't stop there, man. The draft day, we had a nice punch there. Double down in the draft, investing in a lot of upside and a lot of guys with a lot of physical traits like Nick Scorton. You get him in the second round. He's only 20 years old. It already looks like a grown man. He's got long arms, heavy hands, nasty spin move, inside out versatility. I mean, Scorton's got a high ceiling off the edge. Carolina's been missing, right? Then you got Princely Umanmielen, a twitchy, explosive pass rusher with a true edge rush bend, a deep bag of counters. A lot of people wanted Josh Sweat this offseason. I mean, I think you got a Josh Sweat in your hands in the making with Princely Umanmielen. I mean, he's a raw, but upside is so real, man. Like he's already been flashing in minicamp, right? We've already heard all that. And then let's not forget Cam Jackson, the guy we got in the 5th round, right? 6'5". You're talking about a 320-pound from Florida, raw, powerful. I mean, a developmental 2-gap tackle who could bring, could grow and be behind the Brown brothers, Derrick and Bobby. And most importantly, Derrick Brown is back, man, fully healthy, fully motivated, and he signed long-term. He's the engine of this front, right? And one of the best, NFL's best run defenders. So his return is like adding a blue chip all-pro in free agency, right? So, but then we have this shift in identity, right? I mean, you got defensive coordinator Evero, who basically we heard summed up the philosophy shift in one word: knock back. And he came out and even said, like, you always have to be evolving. It doesn't matter how good, bad you were last year. You're going to coach better and play more physical. So, and that's words from the man himself, right? That's the entire identity now, though. There's no more absorbing, ladies and gentlemen. There's no more getting washed out. This front is built to strike first. And now, in 2024, I mean, the Panthers' defensive tackles got blown off the ball. It made life impossible for linebackers. But in 2025, there's depth, there's versatility, there's nastiness. They can rotate in waves, bring different body types, attack protections in new ways, right? But I've got a projected front 7. I mean, this is the base 3-4 look on early downs. You got, DJ Wonnum, Pat Jones on the outside. You got Bobby Brown, the third in the middle, of course. And then you've got A'Shawn Robinson and, Derrick Brown helping out on the interior, right? And then, of course, this is what I think our nickel package is going to look like. This is more on passing downs, right? This is the deepest and most dynamic front I feel like Carolina has had since the 2015 NFC Championship squad. Like, besides, obviously not having Luke Kuechly, but this scheme flexibility is real, right? The personnel finally matches the game plan here, right? But it doesn't really stop there, right? This defensive line are no longer pushovers anymore. That's the way that I feel. You know what I mean? But let's not forget about like this linebacker core that we got as well. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of potential here with this linebacker room, right? This was a unit that was more chaotic last year, I felt like, right? Because between the injuries, that retirement, stopgap replacements, I mean, Carolina's linebackers were often a liability. And this year, they're on the verge of I think, becoming a strength, right? You got the weak side linebackers where that's, DJ Wanham got a high upside as a pass rusher who is still rehabbing, but until he's a full go, because he's listed questionable on the roster right now. But if he's not ready, you got Pat Jones and Princely Miel ready to take reps, right? And I'm a big fan of Princely Miel, and again, I think he is a Josh Sweat in the makings. Again, he's a Florida product, Ole Miss product. May not be polished, but he's explosive and coachable, right? Then you got in the middle, you got the tone setter, Josey Jewell. I think Josey Jewell is a tone setter. He's a savvy veteran. He's got top tier football IQ. He's not going to wow you athletically, but he gets guys lined up. He diagnoses plays early, rarely misses tackles. And then, of course, I didn't put him on the image, but let's not forget Christian Roseboom. I think he's going to be a steady, rangy contributor. I mean, I think Trevin Wallace has the potential to be one of the breakout candidates for the Carolina Panthers this year. He might be the fastest linebacker on the team, and he is an absolute demon on special teams. Then you got the strong side. I still think this is a work in progress. This spot's going to be a camp battle feature for sure. Nick Squarton, who's got the raw but physical, traits. You got Boogie Basham, bounced around but flashes power, and then you got DJ Johnson, athleticism over instincts for now. But what this group lacks in polish is that they make up for really with their motors, right? But then let's talk about the secondary, man. Like, I think it's going to be a formidable year for this group. I mean, they were kind of fragile last year, but you can't talk about the Panthers secondary without starting with J.C. Horn, right? I mean, he's a physical, shutdown caliber corner who's only played 22 of 51 possible games, and when healthy though, like Horn, we all know, is a true game changer. The problem is he's, until last year, wasn't on the field enough, but he's changed out his workout routine. He's changed out his diet. It seems to be working for him. So hopefully he can build off that momentum last year of playing 15 games and go into this year and do the same, right? But this offseason, we made it clear that they're done gambling on help. They've insulated the secondary real depth and competition, I feel like, right? Outside corners, of course, J.C. Horn, CB1. He's joined by Michael Jackson, right? A long press-capable cover man with experience in Seattle we brought in, right? You got a Caleb Evans who offers size, physicality, and zone-heavy schemes. You got MJ Devonshire, claimed off of waivers, brings ball skills, special teams value. He's also been a name in minicamp for a lot of people should have been watching out for. Then in the slot, you've got Shaw Smith-Wade. Sorry. Didn't pop as a rookie, but he still has a chance to win the job outright. And I expect competition here from late camp ads or veteran free agents, right? But then we're not done there. Let's talk about the safety room, right? The Carolina loaded up. It's 1990s Microsoft, man. You got Tre'Von Moehrig, was a smart pickup, a rangy, versatile defender who underperformed in Las Vegas, but fits perfectly, I think, in this system. He was one of my favorite free agent add-ons this year. He'll start probably alongside, as of right now, unless something changes, Nick Scott, who adds leadership, tackling consistency. But behind them, a slew of athletic, hungry rookies. You got Lathan Ransom coming out of Ohio State. You got Isaiah Gifford out of Nebraska. You got Jack Henderson out of App State. You got Trevin Thomas, a veteran depth. These aren't just camp bodies. This is an open competition. And also, let's not forget about Damani Richardson. Lots of potential there, very raw, but I think he has some major upside to obviously maybe take that starting role away from Nick Scott. Obviously, I'm going to be looking at this safety room. This is definitely going to be one of the camp battles I'm going to be looking to this year. But last year's secondary, ladies and gentlemen, broke under pressure. This year might bend, and I don't think it won't shatter. So, but our front office finally playing to win, right? You know, Carolina's offseason wasn't flashy. It was focused. You had these veteran signings in Moehrig, Wharton, Bobby Brown. Weren't headline grabbers, but they were the exact type of plug-and-play players that Carolina lacked last year, right? You know, the rookie investments you made through the draft and undrafted free agency were very bold, in my opinion, right? Instead of chasing these high-floor players, right, Carolina actually targeted athletes with upside and traits. That's a sign they're trusting their new coaches to develop talent and not just manage it. I think, you know, the coaching hires reflect that vision as well. Ronaldo Hill, formerly with the Chargers and Dolphins, brings a modern defensive back mindset. You got Kevin Peterson, a young rising assistant, adds energy and connection to a young locker room. It's a far cry from recent years, right? And watching where patching holes took priority over building an identity. So, you know, the question is, though, is why is no one talking about them, though? It's because, you know, last year's tape was brutal. Bottom 5 in scoring defense, inconsistent tackling, you know, 0 pass rush. The loss, the benefit of the doubt, and that's fair enough, right? You know, but the narrative hasn't caught up to the reality. This isn't the same unit. I think it's deeper at every level. It's faster, it's younger, and more scheme diverse than it's ever been. I mean, the injury insurance, we finally have that. Above all, there's actually a plan, and they're not relying on 1 or 2 stars to carry them, right? They've actually built a foundation with layers here. So I think the bottom line is I think this defense isn't built to dominate out the gate. I think it's built to hold up in September, grow in October, then really become dangerous around November, right? We're not a San Francisco. We're not the Jets, because the Jets defense is good, but they don't need to be. They just need to be good enough to flip the field position, get off on 3rd down, and avoid breaking in the red zone. Bryce Young expected to have a huge leap in year 3. A defense that can hold its own gives this team real upside, right? So if you're a fantasy player, man, start thinking twice about before streaming running backs and fringe wide receivers against this group. Final verdict, though, man, like, sleep on them if you want. Just don't be shocked when they start waking people up, all right? So, again, I appreciate everyone who tuned into this video tonight. Make sure you do these 3 things before you leave. And again, guys, as always, y'all know what to do. Keep pounding. Peace.